Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I very much appreciate your holding a hearing today on these three measures. We have actually before us in a bill that was introduced by our colleague who's sitting on the dais, something that actually is probably the rarest of things and endangered in Washington, D.C., which is a bicameral, my gosh, bipartisan bill that solves a very real problem. I congratulate the gentlelady for her introduction, and I'm pleased to be a sponsor of the legislation. You already mentioned briefly, so I won't be repetitive. The bottom line is the buyout on the West Coast. It kind of made me look at national marine fisheries in a little different way. I kind of started to look at them like a payday lender. You know, they charged an extortionate interest rate, which was 2 points above prime, despite the government's borrowing costs being, you know, much less. And secondly, they didn't establish a repayment mechanism for 18 months and kept running up the tab. I mean, the fishermen were supposed to pay a share of their landing costs to defray the loan. But this is like one of those, you know, those catchy mortgage loans that put a lot of people underwater back in 2008. And this is quite egregious. It is jeopardizing the livelihoods of many fishermen and women on the West Coast. And the other thing that's odd about it is in other cases, for instance, New England, they got a $35 million buyout for zero cost and no interest. But somehow we're being pegged at a usurious rate, and we're running up a bill on interest because we weren't allowed to repay. The bill would rectify this, refinance the loan, extend the repayment period. The government would in the end come out whole. In fact, I think would come out ahead because these people would continue to be able to work and pay taxes. And if we don't do this, many may well have to give up fishing. Then we also have, and already the gentleman, Mr. Sablan, mentioned it at some length, Congresswoman Bordallo's bill, and again, I won't be repetitive, but it would help us to deal with pirate fishing or IUU fishing, you know, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, if you want to be exact. And then the second bill, which is a bill in discussion draft form, and I'd be happy to hear comments on it today for potential changes before we formally introduce, which Congresswoman Hanabusa and I drafted, which would use port state measures to prevent, deter, again, pirate fishing, and in a very, very effective way. By denying people access to markets and doing it in a regular and predictable way to get at those who abuse the system. With that, Mr. Chairman, and I would also thank, I'm going to quickly here, the congressman from California, Mr. Huffman, for his sponsorship on the bipartisan bicameral REFI bill. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.